Oh yeah, so I just wanted to make a quick preview and prediction for Luis Ortiz versus Deontay Wilder, or should I say Wilder versus Ortiz. Now this is the second fight, we've seen it once before, it's not really the fight we wanted to see, in fact, I don't think anybody was calling for it. Now, I'll get to why I think this fight has been made. I think it is circumstantial more than anything. Now, I think really, as we all know, PBC didn't want Ortiz to take the Joshua fight, so he was essentially told, we will pay you similar money if you fight Wilder a second time. There is a narrative there, they have fought before. Now, in the first fight, I just need to go and check, because I'm trying to think when there was the... Right, so obviously we know it was a knockout, win for Wilder, but I'm just trying to think of what round it was. Okay, so it was... I really should have fact-checked this. Right, round 10. Now, as we remember, Wilder did have a lot of trouble in that fight. Now, he was stunned. He was hurt the most he's ever been in a fight, at this level anyway, by Luis Ortiz. Now, Luis Ortiz, as we know, he is listed as being, I believe, 40 now. The thing is with Ortiz, we know he's older than 40, with the greatest respects. There are people saying that he is as old as 48. Now, I don't know how old Ortiz is, but I know he's older than 40, and if anything, if his recent fights are anything to go by, he has regressed. He's not looking as sharp as he looked before the Wilder fight. He's not looking as good as he looked before the Wilder fight. He has been active at least. He's fought Kajanu, Kaufman and Hamer since then. But he hasn't been in with a puncher since then. We know what Luis Ortiz brings. He's quite slow. He is a tricky southpaw. He has very good boxing IQ. But I think a problem that has been throughout Luis Ortiz's career and still stands today, he's been listed as his boogeyman, but he's never fought anybody. His best win is what? Malik Scott? I mean, I think what we forget is Derek Chisora has better wins on his resume than Luis Ortiz. That is a fact. I mean, Carlos Takam is a better win than Malik Scott. And as I said, I'm struggling to see anybody really, you can go back as far as you want, that's much better than that. I mean, Bryant Jennings years ago? Bryant Jennings years and years and years ago? I mean, Bryant Jennings, that was what, nearly 5 years ago? So, I'll be honest with you, man, I just don't see this boogeyman aura for Ortiz. I really don't, and I don't really understand it. Now, moving on, in terms of the way I see the fight playing out, I believe your money is safe if you put a bet on Wilder and for a knockout between round 3 and round 8, I want to say. Excuse me, just a cup. Just because I think we've seen how this fight goes. If Wilder can weather the storm now, I'm not sure Ortiz will be able to bring the storm this time around, in fairness. Wilder knocks him out, and Wilder is quicker, Wilder is rangier, Wilder is more athletic, Wilder hits harder, Wilder's boxing IQ might not be as good, but I'll tell you what, Wilder has a bloody good jab, and Wilder's jab is very underrated. Wilder has one of the best jabs in the heavyweight division. That is a fact. I think other than Fury, he's got a bloody good jab. In fact, I think I saw statistics coming out the other day that he's actually got one of the highest percentage for punches thrown for a jab of any division in boxing. Now, that doesn't surprise me. He's got a good jab. Now, the fact remains is, can Luis Ortiz get out the way of that right hand? We saw what happened to Dominic Brazil. Now, Dominic Brazil and Ortiz are not mutually exclusive. Ortiz is quicker than Brazil, or at least was. Now, or Brazil moves like he's stuck in treacle. Ortiz is quicker than Brazil, but Ortiz is not quick. Ortiz has had a gas tank problem for bloody yonks, and now he's only getting older. That's only getting worse. I mean, honestly, bar a knockout, Ortiz isn't going to win on points, because again, it's the hometown decision. He's not going to win on points, for crying out loud. Wilder's the golden goose. In addition to that, I mean, we saw in the first fight, he got given extra time, and look, I think it's almost impossible, but an absolute shutout, where Wilder gets dropped and splattered around the canvas. Ortiz isn't winning on points. For two reasons. One, I don't think he can make the distance, and two, because, again, it's the politics of it. Wilder has all the advantages going into it. Providing he stays on his feet, he wins this fight. Now, I think, honestly, I'm struggling to see how Ortiz keeps out the way. Ortiz, when he was younger, although only slightly, about 2 years ago, just under 2 years ago, yeah, I remember that day very well, and he struggled, he eventually got caught up to then. He's slowed down since then. We've seen that. He hasn't looked as good. He hasn't looked as quick. He hasn't looked as fast on his hands, with his hands. He hasn't looked as fast on his feet. So where is he going to evade him now for 12 rounds? I just don't see it. I think he's getting caught, and I think we all know what happens when he gets caught, because let's be completely fair, Deontay Wilder gets criticised a hell of a lot, and quite rightly so for a lot of it, but I'm telling you now, you can go through generations and you will see people. I'm not sure there's many punchers in any division, pound for pound, that are as good as Wilder. I think people, as much as they may not like Wilder for one reason or another, this is a historically good puncher. This is as hard a puncher as we have seen ever, honestly. I know that might sound hyperbolic and people might rip the shit out of me for saying that, but honestly, we have not seen punches. I mean, and I know I'm not making the comparison, so please don't throw this that I've compared the two, but Mike Tyson, for example, was he would throw fast and deadly combinations. Wilder, he only has to hit you once. And that is how he's got to this level as it is. That's why he's fighting at world level. That's why he's a world level heavyweight, because his skill is honestly at the level of... I mean, his skill is poor, with the exception of the jab, and as I say, the jab is very good. He's got a very good jab and good power, and that's it. The foot movement is not that great. His ability and skill to land the right hand, admittedly, is good, but that's what I mean. I don't think we've ever seen a puncher quite like it, where the skills, from so many standpoints, are just not that good, but he just has to land, and he has to land once. He doesn't have to land a combination, he just has to land that right hand, good night. Doesn't matter who you are. So, as I reiterate, going back, I know I've gone a little bit of a rant there, but as I reiterate, I am making Wilder a big favourite. I make Wilder this time round. I mean, last time I would have made him 65-35. This time I'm making Wilder 85-15. This would be a far, far, far bigger shock than the first Andy Ruiz-Joshua fight, 100%. This would be up there with Tyson Douglas, it really would be, in terms of historically big upsets, if Ortiz was able to pull this off, because Ortiz, for whatever the narrative that Matchroom pushed when he was with them, and whatever the narrative that PBC push now, he is not a massively avoided fighter. He has just not been managed particularly well. And he hasn't really fought that many great people, and on top of that, he was not a highly decorated amateur, and on top of that, he's not young, he's ancient, and he's looking bad. So, look, if Ortiz was to pull this off, it's going to be a sort of a flash knockout, I think. That's the way I see it happening if he does win. And as I say, I'll give him maybe a 15% chance, because he can bang. Let's be fair, and we've seen him hurt Wilder. So let's not completely rule it out, and I'm not going to say that it's completely impossible, because we know it is possible. But I'm going with Wilder in a pretty big way. As I say, if Wilder just doesn't do anything silly, sticks to his boxing, he can stick Ortiz on the end of a jab. I know Ortiz has very good boxing skills. He might even take a few rounds off Wilder, but look, I think Wilder will catch up with him, and I think when Wilder does, we all know what happens. So for me, it's not an if, it's a when. I think this is an almost definite Deontay Wilder knockout, and I think it could be a highlight reel knockout, It could be one of them that it just is an ugly, ugly knockout. A bit like the Dominic Brazil one. Because, as well, Wilder will be wanting to close the year with a statement. Obviously, we have the Ruiz-Joshua 2 happening soon, and he wants to make a statement. He wants to go on a knockout streak for this year after the Tyson Fury draw, sending him nicely into that Tyson Fury rematch. So, to reiterate, as I'm sure you've got the message loud and clear by now, I'm going for Deontay Wilder to knock Luis Ortiz out, potentially early, but I am going more likely to be middle rounds. So, tell me what you think, and take care.